Thank you very much, Levi. You are tuned to Triple R, breaking and entering this Thursday with just myself, Simon. Today, Lauren Taylor away this week. Formed in 2006 by Marita Dyson and Stuart Flanagan, the Orbweavers are, of course, beloved local musicians, as well as philosophers, poets, artists, and historians who often create folk-infused music, which is inspired by the human and the natural history of the Merri Creek region. Such a great honor to welcome Marita and Stuart to Triple R. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us, Simon. It's a great honour to be on Breaking and Entering and have the chance to perform this way.
Well, absolutely, our honour indeed, and such a great opportunity to speak with you this afternoon as well about some of the projects that you've been working on. I try not to keep you too long because we're all extremely excited to see you perform, and I should mention, of course, that if you're tuned to the radio at the moment, you can, of course, listen to the Orbweavers performing a special live set in just a moment. But if you are in front of a screen, would absolutely encourage you to visit the Triple R website, the homepage, or the socials where you can see the performance. I'm looking right now at the environment that you have created, and it's a compelling scene that you've presented for us. So very excited to see the performance as well. But last time you were on Triple R, I think was last year on the Grapevine. You were preparing for a show for Rising at that time. And you were speaking with Dylan and Kalia, and you were sort of talking a little bit about the songs of Loom, which were celebrating their 10th anniversary at that time. You said in response to a question that you see the songs of Loom not so much as looking back 10 years, but as a building upon, which is such a beautiful way of putting it. Could we ask you, how do the songs of Loom sort of build over time for you, and how has your relationship with the album evolved?
Well, when we first started writing songs for Loom, we were on the beginning of a journey to understand more about the place where we are located. And we are on Wurundjeri land, on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. And we'd like to pay our respects to Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders, past, present, and future generations of community. And we acknowledge that we're on stolen lands where sovereignty has never been ceded. And when we first moved to this area and began to walk on these beautiful lands, immediately these beautiful lands gave us so much joy. The whispering she oaks along the Merri Creek, the bluestone that's right outside everyone's doorways on around this area of Brunswick. It's all most likely locally quarried from quarries along the Merri Creek, taken from the beautiful volcanic basalt that flowed down from volcanoes to the north between 820,000 and I think 1.6 million years ago. And that's very young volcanic stone in relative terms, thinking about the length of time that this beautiful place has existed. And in saying these things, when I initially came here, and I think, Stuart, I don't want to speak for you, but we've spoken about this a lot, we both didn't know very much about this beautiful place. And I grew up in the west of Melbourne and spent most of my teenage and some of my primary school years in around Yarraville. And interestingly, through the journey of learning more about the history of Brunswick and areas along the Merri Creek, I began to see how there were connections between the west and the north. And that's to do with country, with the place where we are. There's a huge volcanic plain that extends underneath Naarm, Melbourne. It flows, the volcanic rock flows down Moonee Ponds Creek, down Merri Creek. It flows out across the western suburbs and underlies really important grasslands that are endangered to the west of Melbourne. So all of these stories and all of this information and all of our emotional kind of responses to learning this is part of the songs of Loom and the songs later on our next album, Deep Leads, and our future album, which we've nearly finished. And it's about building on what we're learning, listening to Kulin Nation peoples whose land we are on, learning more about what's happened here since invasion and colonisation, understanding the impacts of industrialisation, particularly on waterways, because waterways have been treated as extractive resources to obtain water, to obtain stone, to use as drains. So I guess where I don't see this ever ending, in that this learning ever ending, hopefully extraction can end, and we want to learn more about how we can care for where we are. We want to learn more about the many layers of history that exist beneath our feet, around us. And in that sense, when we perform a song from Loom, every time we sing it, we are singing it again with more stories and more kind of heart, in that the longer that we live and spend time here and spend time along the creek, the richer it becomes in our minds and in our hearts. So absolutely. I don't know whether that comes across in the performances, but that's what, every time we go to perform these songs, we think about that.
That's so beautiful. And of course, we are extremely grateful for all of the extraordinary sort of lessons that you are teaching us and all of the sort of research that you are undertaking that is imbued in the music that you are making. And of course, so many of the projects outside of even the records that you're releasing are very much focused on understanding and sharing that knowledge and reconnecting with history and nature. I know that you were involved also with the Rivers Sing project, speaking of Rising, last year, which is a beautiful song installation, an art sound sculpture. Deborah Cheatham, Thomas Supple and Byron Scullen working on this. Can you tell us a little bit about that project and how it felt to experience it in situ?
Oh, that was an amazing honour and opportunity to sing the beautiful melodies that Deborah Cheatham wrote for the River Sing, and I was one of many local singers who contributed vocal parts to the piece, and it was great to go each evening that the River Sing was being performed and was installed in various locations along both the Maribyrnong River and the Birrarung, and to stand by that beautiful water and to hear Deborah Cheatham's voice and to hear everyone's voices emerging out of the water, carrying so much meaning, so much knowledge, so many stories, sung in language, in Woiwurrung and Bunurong, and to hear the song of those rivers there by those rivers was extremely emotional and moving. I remember standing up on a rise in Maribyrnong, overlooking the Maribyrnong River as it winds past a former defence site, which was extremely moving, thinking about the impacts of industry on the rivers, the way the rivers have been treated through colonisation and industrialisation, and how they still flow. They're extremely strong, they're very important, and they must be cherished and thought about, and to be part of that was completely life-changing, in that I hear those melodies every time I walk along those rivers or cross those rivers, and I hear it inside me, because those melodies just come back again every time I pass there. So it was wonderful to be part of that, and it was wonderful to hear it again and again each evening along the two rivers.
Such a phenomenal project, and beautiful to hear you describe it and your own response. And if you have just joined us, you are tuned to RRR Breaking and Entering, where we're thrilled to be joined by Marita and Stuart of the Orbweavers, who have very kindly joined us today to not only speak about their songs, their work, but also to perform a very special set, including songs from the album that we were discussing before, Loom. So without any further ado, I'd love to throw it over to you in the studio, your beautifully decorated environment, to perform for us this afternoon. So thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, everybody. We're on beautiful Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land in East Brunswick. We've decorated our lounge room, which is also our studio, with elements of places that we love. So it's kind of like a dream landscape of beautiful salt marsh lands into the west of Melbourne, which we love to visit. So I like to draw the sedge of that beautiful salt marsh estuarine environment. And then we've got some shinier green foliage, which is not actually mangroves, because I've got a broken foot, so I couldn't go out to beyond our kind of house at the moment very easily. But in our backyard we have a port wine magnolia that has very shiny leaves, and I think it looks a little bit like mangroves, so I cut a few branches of those to bring inside. And then just various love hearts and flowers, because love hearts and flowers are always welcome in my mind. So we send love out to everyone. Lots of people are going through very difficult times at the moment, and so we sing our songs to send messages of love, and we're very humbled to be here and to have this chance. Thank you. We're going to sing a song for the beautiful Moonee Ponds Creek, the Moonee Moonee chain of ponds, which used to end in a series of beautiful ephemeral tidal pools where it met Naam Noom, the bay, and there would be samphire and sedge growing around these ephemeral pools. And very sadly, the ephemeral pools were channelized into a straight line so that coal could be brought on barges up from the bay to what was Spencer Street Station and the rail yards. And in the 90s, when I used to catch the train from Yarraville, the Williamstown or the Werribee, I used to cross Moonee Ponds Creek, and I would see the huge pylons of CityLink being heavily set into its waters. And now today, if you travel along there underneath CityLink, the swans are still there. They build their nests. Reeds are still there. It's very beautiful, and it's still flowing. And hopefully, parts of the channelized cemented sides further north will be returned to a siltier bank where there can be reeds and sedges, and frogs will return. So we sing this song to acknowledge the history of industrialisation that has hurt the Moonee Ponds Creek. We also sing it to remind ourselves that we have responsibilities and work to help return it to better health. Moonee, Moonee, chain of ponds, with your reeds and your black swans. Moonee, Moonee, chain of ponds, with your reeds and your black swans. Moonee, Moonee, chain of ponds, with your reeds and your black swans. Moonee, Moonee, chain of ponds, with your reeds and your black swans. This is the real way. I've come to carve your circle straight. I've come to bring your righteous power, and there a ribbon of blue to carry the coal that feeds me. Moonee, Moonee, chain of ponds, with your reeds and your black swans. Moonee, Moonee, your black swans. Moony, moony chain of ponds with your reeds and your black swans. This is the way. Moony, moony chain of ponds. Now we will move across from our west, across to the east, due east in that direction. From here is the beautiful Merry Creek. So now we'll sing our song for the Merry. It was written in the summer of 2010, and I remember sitting underneath a she oak looking out across the blue stone where a quarry was once located, that was once the deepest quarry in Melbourne, the Wales Quarry, and it was more than 50 metres deep. Bluestone extracted from this quarry formed the basis of roads, the foundation of buildings, and ironically, and perhaps poetically, many of the buildings that would have sat on bluestone foundations extracted from the Wales Quarry were later demolished by Wurundjeri the Wrecker, who took over the site, the old quarry site, in the 1960s and began to use it to refill with building rubble. So this was pointed out by historian Robin Enia, and I read this in her book on the history of Wurundjeri the Wrecker. So every time I walk down to Merry Creek, to Wales Quarry site, and I think about the stone that was taken away and hopefully the stone that was returned to this very site. Mary, your water flows into the quarry where blue stone once lay below, but now the gutters are paved with your heart, and the hole is filled with clay. Sighs to see. Hello, casuarinas, whisper the same song. I will always follow you. 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 Now we will head west again, from the east to the west, to Spotswood, which is right next door to where I grew up in Yarraville. And then I worked for quite a while at Spotswood and still work there occasionally, near the Spotswood pumping station. And again, it's a place where Stuart and I are always learning more and more the layers of history there. It's exactly where the Birrung and the Maribyrnong meet. It feels like it's a very significant place where there's a lot of gravity, because it is geographically, in surveying terms, the lowest point in this beautiful, vast area known as Naarm, also Melbourne. And it's where all the water flows, pretty much to the north and west of Melbourne. I've been reading about the hinge of Melbourne and why there's rain that falls to the east on Bunurong lands, and then there's rain that falls to the west towards Wurundjeri and Wadawurrung lands. These beautiful Kulin lands that we're so grateful to live on. And Spotswood is about returning home, because my mum and my brother still live on the west, so I always feel like when we're driving over there, it's like returning home. Lots of people are far from home at the moment, so lots of love to them. Down by the river where the factories lie, and the west gate stretches across the sky. I've lived north and I've moved south, but I always return to the river mouth. Out from the city, all the secrets pour through the pipes that were laid 100 years ago. Love and ruin and the straining wells, rags and bodies and teeth and gold. A woman of science in the tower above, her laboratory, a labor of love. There she worked while the war raged on, never to marry or she'd lose it all. that I'd be brought back here to you. No stranger thing than how we're drawn back to the place from which we're born. Now we're going to sing a new song that we've never performed live before. We performed it live in Soundcheck, and it's a song for our greyhound, or the greyhound who lives with us and who stays with us. She's fast enough she could run away, and she's strong enough she could jump the fence if she wanted to, but she seems to like living here with us, Susie. So this song is for her, and we wrote it last year during the time where we all spent a lot of time at home. And we used to walk sometimes with her, but she's had a hard time, so she sometimes finds going outside a bit full on. So sometimes Stu and I would just walk without her and then come back, and she would, like anyone who has a dog might know this experience, that when you come back in the house, they come up and they smell you and say, "Where have you been? I think you've been somewhere different," and they can smell your journey, which is really lovely. I love the way dogs do that. Their gentle noses. And so this song is really, it's about how much love we feel we receive from Susie. Whenever we're having a hard day, we say, "Jump up onto the bed," and she jumps up. She's really tall. And I love the way it kind of scares me every time in a beautiful way, like she's right up there and then jumps into your face and with a beautiful big smile, and then she settles down on the bed, and then you can't get her off because she has a superpower of gravity. She just gets really low and stays there, and she'll stay there all day nearly if she didn't have to get up and have some water. And I think she's there now. We thought she might come by and join the show and say hello, but I think she's just staying up in the bedroom. Maybe she'll come out when I sing "Jump Up."
Maybe. Let's hope.
Yeah. We hope everyone's well. Thanks so much for listening. We're just overwhelmed. Thank you for this opportunity. My skin, pull the thread, let more space in. Pull the thread, I wanna unravel. Pull the thread, wind it up and save it. Stitch it back into a future blanket. Cut the blanket into smaller pieces. Quilt it up into another sky. Lie beneath it when I cannot cry. Fold it up into a weighted side. Jump up. Focus on a tactile language. If I could sew, I'd make you a coat. I can mend, but I cannot mold. I walk knitted hours. The body is a place itself. Try to find another way of being. Try to find another way.
Still nights like I've never known. Started charging island stocks. A touching something startles. Longer times the body knows. How can I let old heart go?
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
That's the end of our set. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. A huge thanks from all of us here at Triple R to Marita and Stuart of the Orbweavers. If you have just joined us, or if you've been listening for the last little while, you have been listening, or if you've been lucky to be in front of a screen watching the Orbweavers live on Triple R. They were performing just their new song, and a very special first live performance. So a real thrill to see Pull the Thread, Susie's theme, as well as a number of other songs from their catalogue, including songs from the album Loom, which recently celebrated 10 years since its original release. We want to say also a huge thanks to our sponsors, Young Henrys, who make these live events possible, and a huge thanks to our live team, Bez and Dan, for making it happen. Huge thanks also to everyone who's been listening or watching the Orbweavers performance via the Triple R website and social media pages. If you did miss it, you can, of course, listen back on demand or watch it via the Triple R website. Social media, just head to triplr.org.au. And you did mention in the chat before the performance that there is an album forthcoming. Are you able to share any of the details of the release of that record, or is it maybe a little bit too early to ask that?
Oh, we've nearly finished it. Stuart is mixing it at the moment, and we hope to release it this year. It's called New Moon, so it's about cycles, and it has a lot of songs about water and cycles and thinking about all the periods of time that we've all experienced, and how every month there is a new moon, so there's a chance to start again.
Amazing. Well, cannot wait to hear those songs. And in the meantime, I know also you have contributed theme music, speaking of the moon and the sky, for a podcast called Big Sky Country, which is a Bush heritage podcast. So people can listen to that as well and hear your contributions to the theme. So yeah, huge thanks again for such a beautiful performance and incredible set from the Orbweavers who've joined us here on Triple R. Thank you again, Marita and Stuart.
Thank you, Simon. So much. Thank you, Bez. Thank you, Dan. Thanks everyone for watching and listening.
Going to go to a few sponsorship announcements right now, and right after that, some more new releases to follow.